Hello my friends, this is For Planes, and welcome to Kerbal Space Program Interplanetary, Episode 1. And today we're doing a bunch of chores. Chores like making, testing, and then driving a power truck far enough away so that we're no longer inside the game's loading range for taking off from Kerbal Space Center with a rocket or a plane. We're doing this because, well, using the fusion drive systems has a nasty habit of irradiating stuff because they produce a lot of neutron radiation. And so if you play stuff with Kerbals outside the load range of the things when the engines are not running, you're not going to kill your Kerbals. This is why we're driving up the power truck a couple of kilometers away, and we're also checking by placing something on the runway how far away we are from Kerbal Space Center, which we end up 5.5 kilometers, I think, more or less. Yeah. Then we pretty much go on to our next task. So we come right to our next chore. And that's basically establishing an not interplanetary, I mean, first a planetary antimatter mine, and then once we get one into orbit and have quote-unquote tested if it works correctly, establishing an interplanetary antimatter farm around Joule. So, first of all we need to launch the first stage S1, it's called, of the antimatter farm into orbit, which is basically just a bunch of farms and generator and the confinement unit things. And the harvester modules weighs around about 100 and some tons. And is a failed launch because I don't include enough delta V and stuff goes sideways. I'd like to congratulate myself on a brilliant pun here of my behalf, because in rocket science you really want to go sideways to get into orbit, but in this case we didn't go sideways fast enough to attain orbit, so yeah. Well, we're performing a very, very ballistic reentry, and the inflatable heat shields that I used on to cover the bottom engine pods have overheating issues, and well, stuff becomes spectacularly explosive pretty damn quickly. So yeah, I abandon the flight and press revert to spaceplane hangar, and we improve the design a bit. And I'll be back to present you that right now. This is embarrassing. I either deleted or forgot to record the process of having the launch stage evolve and putting up the antimatter stage farm S1 into orbit, which got some reworkings, I guess. So we'll immediately jump to the pushing stage, which you're seeing on screen right now. Getting that into orbit, docking it, and all the kind of goody-goods, and I'll provide post-commentary all the way, I guess, because that was it took a bit, so yeah, have fun. Alright, so this is pretty much a standard launch, heavily edited, so you don't need to see the entire thing. That took a fair while. Pretty much went without a hitch, so that's desirable. Yeah, payload is 100 tons of this time fuel tank and engine, because as I mentioned, I lost the footage, or either didn't record, I don't remember, that's over a week ago, testing and bringing up the antimatter farm S1. So yeah, we're flying our standard orbital ascent, and I cut it so you see the most important bits of it and accelerated the footage here and there. This is the orbital circularization burn. And also that's part of the rendezvous already, because rendezvous-wise, I pushed the orbit on the other side to about almost 600 km, so that I let the other spacecraft catch up. I ended up a bit in front of it in the orbit. And then next we do an inclination change maneuver, which was a fairly minuscule burn. No, I wasn't normal. I think that... I don't know. I may have even not recorded the inclination change maneuver. And there was some other maneuver here. Like minute adjustments, and we're already coming in for our docking procedure. Like slowing down. It's like your fairly standard approach. You try and bring the relative velocity marker, like... Not relative velocity mark. Yeah, anti-relative velocity. You know, the retrograde marker. For relative velocity, you bring that onto like your anti-target marker. Fairly standard. So you end up... You're like going directly towards the thing. And fairly standard stuff. Slowing down. And yeah, then I undock. And I have to stop recording after undocking because my RCS system, or my reaction control system, is not firing despite having included about 4,000 units of monopropellant. Which comes down to the fact that something didn't work correctly, so I edit the config file to make it use the monopropellant I included, which is Mon20 instead of monopropellant. Don't know why. Didn't. It should have done it with the real fuels config I put in there. Stuff happens. Anyhow, I mark it in nav, and then we pretty much park next to it in space. First of all, because I don't have Navyfish docking UI, I make the payload itself turn on the 180 degree line, so it's easier to dock if you have something face north-south going on the orbital plane around like the planet axis, because if you have it facing north-south, it's like its axis points along the rotational axis of the planet and the normal axis to your orbit. And that makes it so it's pretty easy to dock, because the where the nose is pointing is not really changing, so it's easy to dock. And we go into chase cam, so I can more easily arrest the motion and stuff, and yeah, I pretty much park next to it. So floating over, which can take a while. And as you see, after I floated over, I slow down again, and then I re-roll, which should happen any second now. I'm basically moving in a 3-step procedure. First, I'm aligning myself like so. Anyway, 3-step procedure in 2 or 3 steps to get to the proper relative position for docking. We go down and forwards a bit, like relative to where my camera is pointing. And going into chase cam for that is a fairly safe bet. Also, since we're having about 100 tons of spacecraft fuel tank that we're docking here, even though I have about 15 or 20 kilonewtons of, I think it's 50 kilonewtons of thrust from the monopropellant, or like the RC system, action control system, it's not a lot. It takes for freaking ever to accelerate and slow down. Anyhow, you'll see that like in a minute or so, I've moved too close in and I bumped one of the radiators with my fuel tank, or the berthing mechanism. It's like a docking port in 3.75 meter scale from KW Rocketry, which is like here, because I was too near to it, so I reverse, thrust up a bit, then push forwards again, adjust the heading here. Pretty much do what I have to do, make sure it works properly. I also have lots of the engineers windows still open with the with like the orbital inclination and stuff. Yeah, much of the information I didn't really need anymore. It pretty much was a boring, aka boring normal docking maneuver, but that's how you do it. You prepare and plan, then what you gotta do is, for docking, if you're at the correct position, you go forwards and you try to align your relative velocity marker with your target marker, which means that you're moving directly towards your target. That means you're going to dock with it. You bring your relative velocity marker, your target marker, over your heading marker by, yeah, it's a bit complex, but you'll figure it out soon. Not by turning, but by using the relative controls. And then you pretty much dock like I did. Check some stuff. And next thing we're gonna do is we're gonna re-enter our launch stage. So yeah, and we join our re-entry process pretty much after I disposed of all the glutinous things, and we have about 8 kilometers left to the atmosphere layer in altitude. And I discovered that my heat shields are not reacting to the proper control group I assigned them to. So I pretty much have to open them manually, and they glitch a bit and weird things happen. Anyway, the re-entry process itself was pretty much largely uneventful. Well, not entirely, but I guess we'll just cut to the more eventful things and I'll explain you what happens there. So yeah, we come down out of a 4x speed and yep. So I discovered stuff is becoming pretty damn hot. Mainly the inflatable heat shields. The normal heat shields, yeah, don't have such issues. Filling the heat shields up with lead ballast made them heavier and react to heating a lot less fast. But overall, not fast enough. And what I try to do is I try to make the rocket like pitch and yaw and roll to, like, pass the heating around in a very communist sense, hoping that we decelerate fast enough so we get through the re-entry, but I guess Kerbal Space Program is not having any of this, so my heat shields are burning up one by one, and I also lose parts of my tanks and the other rocket, and we do like it explodes in a fabulous manner, but I would have preferred it if we had not exploded fabulously. Anyways, we do get the rocket down safely. Part of it disintegrates on parachute landing in the water. I aimed for landing on land, but didn't work. Yeah. And then I go and I'll let you guys join me in the explanatory process, what we're gonna do in the spaceplane hangar. So, like, testing overall this entire episode, the conclusion had to be made that the inflatable heat shield simply didn't cut it. which is the reason I took him off. Now looking through my options, what to do and what to replace him with, and well, the only real option I have is using these heat shields. They do work, but I can't dispose of them after the reentry, so I have to make very sure to set their amount of ablative armor correctly high, so that I don't take with me unneeded, like try to suspend on the parachutes, unnecessary amounts of ablative armor. But overall, I'm quite confident that using these heat shields and not taking them, like decoupling them, and then going to a parachute landing and decoupling the topmost heat shield will be quite good, and also landing on land we'll also be able to do a powered landing if we save ourselves a bit of fuel. So overall, we should be golden now. Anyhow, I hope you liked this episode of Kerbal Space Program Interplanetary. We got quite some chores finished. We have a working antimatter farm in orbit, albeit it's not at the correct altitude, so that's something I'll be doing in the next episode. We don't have our antimatter farm en route to Joule yet. Something I'll also be doing in the next episode. Yeah. Quite a lot of things still left to do. We gotta also test like how the ablative heat shields now fare on reentry. And I'm going to have to create a subassembly which has saved action groups. Anyhow, thanks for watching, guys. If you have any suggestions, what you want me to do in this career playthrough, goals or something, please leave them down in the comments. I'll be stating this at the beginning of the next episode as well. And thanks for watching, and bye bye. And if you want to see more of Interplanetary, consider subscribing so you can keep posted. Bye.